Do you want more? More time, more balance, more love, more sex, more money, more real, and less bullshit? This is the Women Wanting More podcast with Dr. Karen Osborne. Real life, real stories, plus real tips to get you more of what you want.
No, sister, that only love is real. All the other stuff that we think and experience, fear, jealousy, blame, shame, anger, rage. Like, listen, those are all emotions that you definitely feel, and I definitely feel, and everybody feels. But the thing to really understand is that it's not a real thing that's happening. It's a story of the stuff that we feel. It's a story of the stuff that we feel. And you need to feel these things that you feel. I'm not saying to deny those things, but just know that the only true emotion and our center point, our compass, if you will, is one thing, which is love. It's love. And so let me give you a little bit of context for this. And so for last week, both my sons are actually in summer camps, and they're having a blast with them. And Tyson last week said there was one of the kids that kept taking his hat, or kind of, the word bully gets like thrown around so quickly now, right? But I guess kind of bullying him, just teasing him and bugging him. He told him to stop, and it was good. I'm proud of my boy. He didn't freak out. He didn't react. He didn't hit. That would have been Tyson about a year ago, but he's definitely matured a lot, and he's learned a lot over this past year. And so we talked about it, right? And I just said, listen, here's something to understand about people who do those things, is that often, and that it's easy to be like, well, he's a jerk. Or it's funny, he told the story to my husband, and right away Ed's like, well, we're gonna go talk to his parents. I'm like, Ed, pump the brakes, babe. I get it. I've been there before too, but this is just somebody taking his hat. It's not like he's pummeling him at camp, and But I just said, listen, let's talk about this. People who bully, and I'm gonna probably get in the podcast episode this week, because there's cyber stuff too, and oh lordy, I got some of those. I'll tell a story about that later this week. But the thing to know is that people who spew that kind of hate level of someone who's been doing that with me, or they just bump off your hat, and that's not really hate, that's just kind of teasing and irritating and stuff, is that often, and it's different levels of that, right? There's some sadness that person feels inside. There's something inferior that they feel. There's some self-esteem that's happening there. There's a sense of self-worth that's not quite there, that they're wanting to I almost see it as this way. It's let me get the sadness, and let me get it out of me. And the way I'm going to maybe get it out of me is I'm going to express it as anger, and whoever is in my line of fire is going to get that anger, right? You know how sometimes it's you might have someone cut you off in traffic, and you can go two places, right? You can be what a fucking asshole, and go off myself, or you might decide to just be, man, maybe there's something happening in that person's life. And we've all been that person too, haven't we, sister, right? Where we're oh God, I didn't mean to say this, but this is really what's at the root of it, right? I'm upset about something. It had to get out. That emotion had to be released. And so when I'm explaining that to my son Tyson, I'm just listen, buddy, understand that these things are happening for us to be able to have an experience to really deploy empathy and have some compassion, for us to really understand love. See, love is like a practice. It's like gratitude, right? You can easily just go, oh, when things are happy, yeah, I'm so grateful. Gratitude becomes a practice when you still search for something to be grateful for, even when you're having a shit day, a shit week, month, year, life. Love is the same way. It's easy to express love when you are feeling loving. It's easy to express gratitude when you are feeling grateful. But can you show love and compassion to somebody who's not being so loving and compassionate to you? And it might seem like really counterintuitive, and I'm not saying you let people walk over you. Absolutely not. I wouldn't ever teach my child. I wouldn't ever say this to you, sister. I wouldn't do it myself. Just say like, oh, namaste, love to you, and let someone like, be unkind to me, or to be cruel, or to be hurtful, or to physically hurt me, and just go like, let me just send them love. I'm not saying that at all. You still need to understand boundaries, what's okay and what's not okay. But I believe there can be a way of doing it that comes from a place of love and compassion, and not be mean back, or cruel back, or irritating back. So as I said to Tyson, I'm like, listen, buddy, this boy is doing that to you because there's something that he feels not good about himself inside. And so he feels that if he does this to you, it's somehow going to make him feel better, right? It's like, people who are bullied, you probably know this too, right? Some of the biggest, like, people that bully, whether it's adults or it's like kids, they're often bullied themselves. And so it becomes this like projection of like, they wanted to express that anger back towards that person that's bullying them. And so they just end up being the bully. That's like, they also are doing what they know. And so imagine if you're in a family maybe where, maybe it's those in your family that bully you, or family friends, or like kids and stuff. And so you start repeating back the behavior that's been taught to you. And maybe this is not to like pick on this kid. I don't want to this isn't like making a big deal out of something that's not a big deal, but I'm just using this as a place of context. Maybe this is a child and family where that's what they kind of do. Like maybe they just kind of like, they tease each other, they kind of like bug each other a little bit, but it just comes from a place of like, they're just kind of doing it in a loving way. And maybe it didn't come out that way for Tyson, right? And he feels like he's really being picked on. Who knows? It could be all these scenarios. But the thing to understand, the biggest piece of this, is that we always have the chance to either choose love or we choose fear. And fear, by the way, shows up in anger, resentment, blame, shame, self-loathing, anger, rage, what some might consider the quote-unquote bad emotions. Like that's how fear shows up in those different ways. I remember a therapist saying to me one time, they said, well, what's at the basis of anger, right? And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, it's fear. Fear is behind anger. I'm like, what? Sometimes I'm just pissed. It's like, no. If you really kind of get honest about it, like it's fear that's beneath that. That's the basis of that. So every single moment, whether it's I'm teaching my son and it's the kid that's knocking off his hat or taking his hat away, that we can choose love. Whether it is, and this is a story I'm probably going to share later this week on the podcast or in a Facebook post of a woman that's been following me and setting up fake accounts. And every single time I share something about parenting, a real honest truth, which is not easy to do. In the world of like mom shaming and judgment and all this stuff, to come out and go like, man, this happened today, or this was challenging today. And she just like beyond mom shames me, like I'm a horrible mother, and like I have a dysfunctional family and I shouldn't have my kids, and like just fucking awful shit, right? So we're sharing something. There's another one of those ones today, and I can tell it's the same person because she just sets up a new account and it's the same kind of language, and I just know. And so I shared it with my husband, and I was like, what, I go, this stuff, like I can tolerate it, and I can, it doesn't let it like really affect me, but it's hurtful. You're a human being. It's not so, people have made comments to me at times like, oh, I just want to get a place where I don't give a fuck about all those things. And I'm like, well, then you're either going to be you're either going to numb it or be like a sociopath or something. Like, of course you're going to feel something. But it's like, what do you do with that, right? Where will you allow it to go? Will you start to believe that stuff? Or what I said to Ed, because I'm like, I'm going to post about this. He's like, don't do that. That's what they want. They want to have that attention and that energy. And I'm like, no, it's going to be from a purpose of boundaries. Because each time then too, this person has been reported and blocked, and, it becomes this, I guess, game for them or something. But I said, let me just kind of think, like, what would it be like to be in her shoes, where she's creating energy and time in her day to purposely like create a post with the intention of just hate, judgment, shaming, all that stuff. I'm like, what is happening inside someone when they're in that space? I'm like, where have I been if I've been in that space before? I'm like, ooh, I'm really fucking hurting. Like, I'm really angry about something. I've been hurt. You know, it becomes like a knee-jerk response. Maybe I've been triggered by somebody, and it has nothing to do with them, but they just happen to, like, be there and be the thing that triggers me. And I make it about them, but it's really not. And so that person that has gone to that great amount of, and this has been over several months, like length of time and posts and comments and setting up new accounts and stuff, I'm like, to invest that. And I just, by the way, I say this in a this is what my words are, not a passive aggressive, right? Like, oh, must be da da da. Like, no, like I truly, like, I'm just kind of like, what is it like to be in her shoes? I'm like, oh man, she's got to be really hurting. Like, somebody must have maybe shamed, I shouldn't say must have, perhaps somebody's really shamed her. Perhaps she's felt really judged. Perhaps she's hiding some stuff in her life that's really uncomfortable and doesn't want people to know. Maybe these are things that I'm saying that she's been feeling but doesn't want to even hear them because feels like, oh my God, if I ever say stuff like, you know, I love my kids, but I don't like them today, or someone said I hate you, or I swore, or like whatever kind of thing, for that person maybe to think of those things happen to them and it can't ever, ever happen because that would be the worst as a mother and therefore you're a terrible mother. Like, perhaps my honest share about these things is bringing up those feelings for her. And I can choose to spew hate back, which, again, not real. Fear. It's not real stuff. Or I can just be like, I'm going to set boundaries. I'm going to block this person each time. I'm going to report them. This is not okay to harass me. But I'm also going to send her love and compassion. I am. And hope that there's something that she finds in her heart where she shifts out of that place of hatred and into love. Because, you know, the biggest thing to know about all this and to know that, yeah, love is the only thing that's really real, is that when you have that kind of hate and that rage and that anger, not that there's not a place for it, not that there's not a time to stand up and just be like, this is not okay, and be in that space in a very bold, aggressive, assertive, like in your face way, right? Like, listen, if somebody tried to hurt me or my children physically, emotionally, like really started going there, you better believe, like, it's on. It's on. There's no love and compassion at this point. It's like I'm in protection mode, right? For myself, for my children, for my family, like all of that. Like, you're going to see a whole side of me that people have never fucking even witnessed before. It will get primal. Especially if it's something where, yeah, if I was like attacked physically or my children were, or like, it's on, right? But for the most part, I don't live in a world or be in an environment where that is my reality. I didn't grow up like some people did, like around gangs and in like extreme levels of poverty and violence and guns and drugs and all this kind of stuff. So that's not my reality. And my reality is right now, when I think of this woman, I don't feel badly for her. It's not about a sympathy thing. It's just like, let me send her some love. Like, really. Let me send her some love and some compassion. And I know how that feels in my body. And that feels really actually good. That feels good to practice love in a situation where I could choose to be far from loving. Well, she's being this to me. I'm going to be this back to her. Okay, I could do that. That would be a choice. But it feels like shit. And the hate that is spewed to somebody else, really, it's also spewed back to me. It's like this boomerang effect, right? Hate has that effect. Any of those fear-based emotions. Hate, rage, anger. And listen, again, I'm not saying that you don't suppress these emotions. You're feeling stuff. There's ways to express these in a healthy way. Go move your body. Go scream. Go say fuck, 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 fuck a whole bunch of times. I find it's actually very therapeutic for me. It works for me. I move my body. I meditate. I journal. Like, I release the stuff. I release those emotions, recognizing that they ain't real. And then I quickly as I can move back to a place of love once I've moved and I've processed that. So I want to make sure this is really clear, because I think this is where the lines can get blurry of like, well, I shouldn't do this stuff and I should just be like, love to you and namaste and blessings. I'm going to pray for you. But really you're like, man, you're acting like a doormat right now, and you haven't created boundaries, and people are going to keep walking all over you. And if you don't express that stuff or feel like it's not okay for you as a, religious woman, as a mother, as a whatever, to express those feelings that you have, believe me, they will just fester inside of you. So you need to release that shit. You need to let that go and move through it. But then move back to love, because that's all that there really is. So here's your more tip for today then. Where in your life do you really need to be more in a place of love? Where is that? Maybe there's some things that are happening in your marriage right now, and you're just like, you're not talking about things that you need to with your husband. You're not having the conversations you need to. You're not clearing the things that you want, and you just are like reacting to things. Maybe it's with your body. You look at yourself in the mirror. You tell yourself either inside your head or out loud of like, I hate myself. I'm ugly. I'm fat. Nobody will love me. Like, where is it within you that you really need and choose and need to shift into a place of love and compassion and away from fear, any of those fear-based emotions? Because love is real, the other stuff is not. And from someone that's been in anger a lot of times in my life, and no regret, these are all experiences for us to have that move us to that next space. I know what it feels like now. Even when I speak of this, I know what it feels like now to be like, let me send her love, because, man, she must be really hurting to do this. She must be really hurting. Or to be from a place of like, fuck you, bitch, and you can't talk to me that way, and mom shaming, and blah, 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 and you're such a liar, you're this, you're that. Love and compassion. So where do you need to express it more within your life right now, sister? And then do that. So finishing up, a couple things. Number one, if you're not part of the sisterhood, now is your time. You want to know how to get to these things. There's things that I share on the podcast, but this isn't coaching, right? I know a lot of you kind of see it that way, or some of you have, and you've gotten great benefit, and that's amazing. But if you really want to go to the next space, this is why I created the Sisterhood about a year and a half ago. It is a group coaching program for you to be around women who are like you, all through a Facebook page. So really, simple, easy peasy, lemon squeezy. And every single day I create a sisterhood tip, and then there are weekly trainings. And right now there's almost 60 trainings in the archives for you actually to be able to go in and go back and watch all the video trainings and all of the action steps that come with that. So huge there. So you actually get to sign up for free for the first 7 days. My gift to you right now, head over to drkarenosborne.com/sisterhood. By the way, all the links that I give you are clickable links. If you click on the I on your iPhone, if you any other phone, my bad, but I don't know your phones, I just know an iPhone. So if you click on the I, that brings up the show notes, and you can just click on the links. You don't even have to what was that URL again? Just click on the link for the sisterhood. Okay. In addition, make sure to subscribe to the newsletter, because then you'll get the show notes actually sent to you. And so even if you're driving, you're on a run right now, you're with your kids at the park or something, and you can't stop and pull up your phone, the show notes are actually sent to you Monday through Friday, as well as the episodes. So if you're like, what's the next episode? You're going to get that as an email. It's going to be dropped into your inbox 5 days a week. So if anything, you'll get that when you sign up for the newsletter. But I'm also going to send you some really amazing video trainings on how to really remember who you are, to drop the stories, and to create new ones. And so that's over at drkarenosborne.com/action guide. And then number 3, I would love if you help me drown out any of the hate that's there in those iTunes reviews with love, and leave a 5-star review. If you feel this podcast is really beneficial to you, I would love to get your feedback on that, and to help then to attract other women that really need to hear this message. And so subscribe to the podcast, leave a 5-star review, and I would love and appreciate that so much. So I will talk to the next episode, sister. A life of more is just one step away from you doing the fucking work every single day. I love and appreciate you.
To get the show notes of each Women Wanting More episode, including the How to Get More tip, subscribe to the newsletter at drkarenosborne.com/newsletter.